Okay, this is fucking it. This is absolutely fucking it. Clive Palmer, get your ass out of Australia. You're a fucking traitor. We're going to say this straight now. Right fucking now. We are going to say this to you right now. Clive Palmer, get your fucking ass out of Australia. We're going to nip you right in the butt before you even get off the fucking goddamn, what's the word, when horse bloody thing. You know, when the horses start the race. Before you even start the race, Clive Palmer, we're kicking you out. We're absolutely kicking you out. Oh, you've done a little poll and you think Australians want Trump policies, do you? Are you full of fucking shit? You know what you did? You did a poll between you and Pauline fucking Hanson, and that was fucking it. And you thought that was polls on fucking Australia. And maybe General Reinhardt as well. You're full of shit, Clive Palmer. You're acting like no one knows what's going on in America at the moment. You're acting like that country isn't crying that their democracy has been destroyed by Donald Trump and his associates. You're acting like people are fucking stupid and they haven't noticed that. You're acting like, heaven forbid, that maybe it's just some really left-wing leftist rhetoric when it's fucking not. Let's have a look at the actual situation in the USA, what it is and why there is absolutely no way any Australian in their right mind would support anything that remotely resembles Donald Trump. Now, as you would know, Mr. Palmer, there isn't a single person in Australia that could give a rat's fucking backside about the Republican versus Democrats debate. And we cordially remind you that a famous Australian song by Cranky is Australia, don't become America. We would also like to remind you, Clive Palmer, that one of the most common sayings on the streets of Australia, and this body has travelled around the streets of Australia quite a fair bit, is thank goodness we're not the USA. Thank goodness we're like the USA. Only in America. We're glad we're not in America. Australia would never be so stupid. Well, Australia would be stupid if they fucking let Clive Palmer fucking take one more step of what he's fucking doing there. If he's saying Australia wants policies like Donald Trump, or he's going to have policies like Donald Trump, this is what we can expect. This is what we can expect. Stacked courts, stacked Senate, stacked fucking Congress. Actually, none of those fucking things matter. Because even in that stacked situation, okay, which, by the way, when it comes to Congress and Senate, that's about voting, so that's a different issue. When it comes to courts, that's different. And again, the Australian system is different again when it comes to the courts. So we'll put that aside. What are you really saying there? What are you really saying there, Trump-like policies? Okay. Trump's executive is one man plus some tech bros. It's entirely dominated by industrialists. There is no social policy advisors amongst them, or hardly any amongst them, that would qualify as qualified social policy advisors. In his first executive orders, which were on Fox News, he was signing to give away $50 billion plus for Stargate AI because the tech bros handed him an executive order. He did one good thing, which was this: release the JFK and Martin Luther King files. Everything else was a fucking hogwash. Everything from what? Go on. What did he do? Want to listen to the executive orders? You can find them online. Go look them up. Do your fucking homework. The Americans have been paying attention. There's oodles of YouTube videos about it, both from former MAGAs and leftists in the USA. Okay? It is not one side in the USA. Both the left and the right can't stand Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Let's look at the tech bro situation. Who was handing the executive orders that day? Who's been handing them since? David Sachs, tech bro. Who else? Who else? Who else? Go on. Go on. Go on. Keep going through the list. Keep going through the list. And why aren't these being said? Why aren't these being said? You know why these aren't being said? Because it's not true. The tech bros weren't handing Donald Trump the executive orders. You know who were? The Kremlin. The Kremlin was handing Donald Trump the executive orders. One or two came from the tech bros. The rest came from the Kremlin, indirectly. There were at least two people in Donald Trump's cabinet
who were considered to be Russian spies or assets, or suspected thereof. Donald Trump himself has been confirmed as a Russian asset. Since 1987, his name's Agent Krasnov. Okay? Do you understand what that means? That means the Russian Federation has usurped the presidency of the United States of America. It means that the sovereignty of the United States of America is in jeopardy. It means the democracy of the United States of America is in jeopardy. This isn't about ending the Cold War, because the Cold War ended in 1989. The Cold War ended in 1989. That's old news. Okay? We know the media's been parroting about it, carrying on about it for a long time. But it actually ended in 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the USSR. Agent Krasnov has been active since 1987. That's Mr. Trump. Who's Clive Palmer? If Clive Palmer is a Donald Trump wannabe, is he an agent for the Russians or the Chinese? Is he a foreign spy? Is it the case that Australian industrialists are like some American industrialists, like, say, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, who their lines of credit have come from places like China and Russia? After all, it is a known historical thing that goes back before Donald Trump's career, that he's had at least 6 bankruptcies. How can a man go bankrupt that often and yet still be a billionaire without getting lines of credit to start his businesses up? Well, the answer is quite simple. It was implied in The Art of the Deal and confirmed recently by the KGB. He's been moonlighting as Agent Krasnov. He's been doing dirty work for the Russians since 1987, and he's been getting paid off in return. What's Clive Palmer been doing? See, the thing about Clive Palmer, he seems to be a Johnny-come-lately, doesn't he? He's a guy that showed up in Australian politics maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, sat in Parliament and fell asleep. Did nothing in particular, got fuck all fucking votes, was a joke then, is a joke now. And for some reason he's touted as one of Australia's mining industry billionaires, but no one knows what he's actually done. Maybe if you're from his local area, you know, but the rest of us are going, yeah, well, we've heard of Twiggy Forrest, we've heard of Gina Reinhardt, we've heard of Rupert Murdoch. You know, when it comes to Australia's, A-listed billionaires, we've heard of them, but he's fucking Clive Palmer. He seems like Big Kev's younger brother. Like Big Kev died, the actor, and his younger brothers decided to take the microphone and moonlight as a fucking so-called billionaire. The guy apparently has projects like he wants to rebuild the Titanic. Can I ask you a question? Is that guy the kind of guy that is in the habit of flogging dead horses? Is he the kind of guy that supports sinking ships? Does he want to prop up things that are ultimately going to result in failure? Is he a fucking idiot? Clive Palmer, legitimately, are you fucking stupid, mate? Are you fucking stupid? We're sorry, but there are literally dozens of Tesla showrooms in the United States right now on fire. Hundreds of Cybertrucks and Tesla motor cars burnt down in arson attacks as the expression of Americans' rage, predominantly from Republican voters. That's not even a joke. The first Cybertruck that got blown up in Las Vegas was by a Republican voter from Texas who was in the army. Don't go thinking it's the woolly left-wing leftists like Elon Musk would have you think that are doing it. It's the Republicans. The people that voted for Trump, allegedly, they don't like him. The Republicans in America do not like Donald Trump. They are at the point where they are blowing shit up every single day to have a crack at Musk and have a crack at Trump. Because they do not like that man. They see him as a threat to their democracy. They've been talking, and Australians are getting this message from the Americans, about how their constitution has been breached. about how that man has betrayed them and is a domestic threat. Donald Trump has made tweets declaring himself a king. Trump and Musk have been known to flout court orders from the Supreme Courts saying Doji shouldn't do this and Trump shouldn't do that. They've tried to allege that the executive cabinet is the law, not the courts, not the Congress, not the Senate. The cabinet, the executive, which is a dictatorship, not a democracy, by anyone's standards. Clive Palmer would think that Australians would want that Australians are stupid. Australians whose main media is yank shit, where day after day after day on the mainstream news and YouTube and wherever else, we're pummeled and bombarded with America this and America fucking that. And all we're hearing from the United States at the moment is that every man and his fucking dog over there is freaking their fucking ass off that they've just lost what they hold dear. America itself. And they think that Clive Palmers of the world think that Australia would want that here? Is he insane? Does he actually think Trump's policies are good? Is he insane enough to think that Australians are stupid enough to want to vote for a has-been, one-hit wonder, minor party that got one fucking seat once and everyone laughed at him, would somehow be the independents that would take over from the majorities? No. Honest to goodness. Palmer, you're a fucking idiot. Give up before you fucking start, mate. At the rate you're going, there will be people who will find your businesses and do arson on you if you're not careful, and not condoning it, not suggesting it, saying it's a possibility that they will do arson on your businesses, Mr. Palmer, for supporting fascism, for supporting dictatorship, for supporting corporate oligarchy, for even suggesting for a single second that a single Australian would forget what their diggers stood for, which was for fighting the Nazis in fucking France before the Yanks even showed up. Australia, don't become America. You remember what Australia stood for in World War II. You remember Australia went there and was fighting at the Somme Normandy against Hitler, against the fascists. You remember that Australia was the one defending England during the Blitzkrieg, not the other way around. You remember that Australia was actually one of the greatest defenders against dictatorships in World War II out of any group, because they were fighting the Pacific Front and they were fighting, and they as in we, I'll say they because it's historical, wasn't alive then. They were fighting the Pacific Front and the Somme Normandy at the same time. And you know that those poor Japanese people were on a dictatorship at the time. One cop from America at the end of that war was lousy. Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. They didn't deserve that, by the way, just because they had an arsehole fucking emperor at the time. That's not their fault. Now, if you go back a step, at that time, England was being bombed in the Blitzkrieg. Europe was a fucking mess. An absolute gobsmacking mess. And Australia was fighting both fronts simultaneously. Little old Australia, with fuck all population and an even smaller fucking army, with their even smaller population Kiwi buddies called the Anzacs, were together fighting them. Fought that Nazi dictatorship. Fought it, held guard, held fucking strong. While the Americans were making money from the tanks they sold Hitler at the start in the mid-1930s, from the IBM typewriters they fucking sold Hitler. Meanwhile, one of the English fucking goddamn princes was living in the continent in a castle he bought to be closer to Hitler. That was Queen Elizabeth II's uncle. You look your fucking facts up. You look how England was betrayed by their own aristocracy and monarchy. You look how America funded Hitler at the start. You look at how the Soviets did the same thing, and you look at how Australia never had a single goddamn fucking bit of that, and the entire time during World War II supported refugees, fought Hitler, and fought Emperor Hirohito, whatever the fuck his name was. And then you look at how in 1948, how Doc Evatt spearheaded the UNCCPR with Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the United Nations, which formed out of the League of Nations, and how those protocols were created by the United Nations in direct response to the Nuremberg trials because of what Hitler did. And you look at what followed after that in Australia, how Australia started to look at in their own backyard and their own mess, and how the mistreatment of Aboriginal people through the stolen generations needed to be thought through, and how long it took for that to be thought through, and how the mission started to close in the years that followed after that. But how Pine Gap, a woman declared so, opened instead. You have a look at the complexities of that hypocrisy. You have a look at how, in the long history of Australia, not a single Australian worth their salt has ever supported fucking fascism. You have a look at all those diggers that fucking died in that Great War Memorial in Canberra, which is in the wrong spot, because in terms of land, it disrespects Mount Ainslie, which is a woman's mountain. Nonetheless, if you want to talk about it from the perspective of what those men stood for, it was against Hitler and Mussolini as well. Look at how historically Australia responded to Pol Pot. We know Australians had racism against Asians, even after the Vietnam War as well. But I said straight away, no mate, Cambodians, you can come here. You look at how, when there's a dictator, Mussolini for example, how in the 60s and the 50s, the Maltese and the Greeks and the Italians came to Australia on boats. You look at how the population called them wogs, but nonetheless didn't say go to Manus Island or Nauru. And you look at how copying America and copying Britain, and specifically copying America after September 11, has not done Australia any favours. Look at Manus Island, Nauru. Look at the disrespect of the Fuzzy Wuzzies. Why should their country be used as the processing facility, or why was it being used as a processing facility for migrants, refugees and so on? Why were so many of them from countries that Australia co-invaded with the USA? And how much of that had to do with September 11? And by the way, how many of those people were involved in that September 11 attack? Fucking none. Not a single one of them. So, we implore you, Clive Palmer, if you are going to have Donald Trump policies, then you must open Manus Island and Nauru again. And you must make it exclusively for the hundreds of thousands of English-speaking native citizens of the United States of America of numerous ethnicities who'll be coming over in planes and boats as refugees real fucking soon to avoid the civil war that's about to erupt there. And you can treat them exactly the same way as the Muslims and the Arabs and the Southeast Asians and whoever the fuck else wound up in Manus Island and Nauru. Because that's what Trump would do. He would make refugees of other people or inherit policies that made refugees of other people, such as NAFTA, and ignore the rights of refugees. He would, as was shown by American commentators recently, that ICE raids had taken Venezuelan refugees who were escaping a dictator named Maduro and put them in Supermax. Because they were undocumented migrants, you know. Go on, Clive Palmer. Do it. We dare you to put all those Trump voters in Manus Island and Nauru when they start flying to Australia to get away from the civil war that Trump's situation has created. Because that's what's about to erupt there. There are, in fact, people who work for spy agencies or used to work for spy agents in the USA who are livid at what's going on. Some of them are becoming refugees in Canada. And they are saying that they believe that country is about to go into a civil war because of the dictatorial leanings and practices of that administration and that cabinet. Be not mistaken, Clive Palmer. If you attempt to support anything that remotely resembles Trump or Musk at this point, your name is completely fucking mud. Completely mud. It goes completely against all the wisdom of the world, which, by the way, Canada wants to revoke Elon Musk's citizenship. South Africa doesn't want him back. There's been parliaments around the world who said Musk's a fucking dickhead. There are countries turning away from Donald Trump right now. The guy wanted to annex Canada, for fuck's sake. Donald Trump threatened to annex fucking Canada. Palmer, are you going to try and annex New Zealand? Are you a fuckwit? Are you an idiot? Do you think we're even going to single second support that? You stupid bloody nobby. Give up before you fucking start. You're in trouble. You're in trouble, Clive Palmer. If you even had any business in the first place, as opposed to being a paid actor, younger brother of Big Kev or some shit, they'll probably close down. A Queenslander, are you? There are a bunch of Fruit Loops up there, mate. There's cocky farmers with guns. They're stupid. This is not a suggestion. This is a warning. They'll do arson on you. They'll find your minds and they'll blow them up. Then FIFO workers are going, oh, fuck this naughty. You watch out, Clive Palmer. Because the one comfort that Australians have right now is that they're not like America. And if you want to bring a single shred of that here, you can go back to the USA where you come from and your ideology comes from, you stupid fascist prick. And you could go and enjoy that oligarchy over there. Because you're not an Australian, Clive Palmer. Clive Palmer, if you're going to do that, you're not an Australian. That is un-Australian. You just crapped on everyone. And we will not stand for it. Not every refugee and migrant in Australia who escaped a different dictator. Not everyone who ever had a relative who fought a dictator. Not anyone who has friends or relations in the USA right now who are crying, worried, scared about what happened to their country. And that includes people who are MAGA. Be not mistaken, Clive Palmer. You're not going to win. And heaven forbid if you do. Heaven forbid if you do. Maybe, just maybe, that'll wake up the sleeping giant that is the Australian subconscious. With us. What? After all, it is the case that a lot of Yanks think Starlink has something to do with the election, slightly more than MAGA, despite MAGA being dumb for a while. Fuck you, Clive Palmer. How could we possibly be in a situation where you could possibly even think for a single second that any Australian worth his salt would take you fucking seriously? Deport Clive Palmer.